Hello? 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 I think you're the only, Rob, are you on here? Can you type in the chat and see if that works? Or do I need to enable chat? Maybe I need to do that. Okay. I am going to go ahead and get started. Let me get this going. So I can't see the chat box or comments right now. So I'm going to go ahead and just get started. And then after I go through the slides, I will have some time, and I've allotted some time for questions. So we can go through the questions at that time. I'm using Google Hangout, and I'm not quite sure exactly how it works. So if there are some problems with people actually going through and being able to maybe speak into the Hangout and participate, use the chat box, and I'll continue to troubleshoot. So again, if anyone has a recommendation for a great webinar program, I'm just getting started on this. So I'd love your suggestions. So anyway, I wanted to go ahead and start by saying thank you to Paige for naming the webinar series Sales Like Whoa, because that's hilarious. Really what we're talking about here is pipeline and prospecting. So that is something, I'll tell a story in a little bit about that, but we're not going to go into closing. We're not going to go into necessarily like things like discovery calls or mapping calls or overcoming objections or anything like that. I just want to talk about process. Now, one of the things that I think is really important to note is with a lot of people's sales, it's like people get a little weird about it because it feels like you're selling something in a way that doesn't have a lot of integrity. And so I want to go ahead and just emphasize from the beginning, no sheistiness, no shenanigans. This is, a process for ways to reach people who are actually qualified to be your customers, and to do that in a way that really feels kind of true to you and your product. And I think I can hear everybody now. Can people hear me still? Yeah, anyway, okay. So obviously I'm awesome. So I'm Genevieve. For those who don't know me, I'm the co-founder of a company called Sadie. We do high volume e-commerce product photography for apparel brands, accessories brands, beef jerky companies, really anybody who has pictures of products that they want to sell online. And so we, long story short, the company is kind of rounding out to almost its second year, which is crazy. And I started off January 15 this year. Things were very, very bleak. January 2015, we had no sales. We had 0 sales. It was lemony snicket, like really bad. I didn't really know what to do. This is a story. If you want to hear about it, we can go to drinks and I'll tell you all about it. But the day that I discovered that we were kind of screwed, literally probably later that week, I got this invitation to go join a couple other founders in Silicon Valley and learn sales. And I remember the time I didn't have the money, but I was like, I went, and I don't even know how I got there, but I went. And so I learned this process from, a lot of companies that have big teams and big resources. And I was like, this is awesome. I have no idea how I'm going to implement this back at home because I don't have that big of a team and I don't have any resources. So really, that's where the evolution of this came from. Prior to starting Sadie, I was very, very early at Crowd Compass. And so for some of you who are in Portland and kind of involved in the tech scene, Crowd Compass is a local success story. But I tell you, just like everybody says, it was completely all luck and roll of the dice. And there were a lot of times when things were really bleak for us. And a lot of that was due to sales pipeline. I, along the way have worked with venture capital funds, like Bay Capital Partners, down in the Valley. And I've also done a little bit of work with MIT Labs, and all of that was kind of centered around commercialization, go-to-market, and consulting. Can we sell this? And so I've sort of always been doing sales, but I never really wanted to think about it. And so it was sort of jarring when I kind of realized that I didn't know actually how to sell. Next slide here. Boop. There we go. So anyway, things sucked. Really sucked. I can tell you kind of more about that later. When you have overhead and you don't have any sales, it is the worst company ever. I had no new traction at all to report to investors. I mean, I would sit down with angels and they say, how's everything going? And I'd just be like, should I make something up? I mean, what do you want to hear? It wasn't good. So 0 cash flow. When you're at that point, it's not a cash flow problem. It's like you are completely screwed problem, especially when you have overhead. And the worst part about not knowing how to prospect and really not knowing how to do that was you have no flexibility and no options. And at the end of the day, I just did not feel in control at all. I felt like every day I was getting up and hoping that somebody called me or some customer found out about us. And that was just the absolute worst. So what I designed and created, this is a form of outbound prospecting. When a lot of people think about outbound prospecting, they think about like opening up the phone book and starting with A and calling down the thing. That is absolutely not what we're going to do. That would be the worst. Outbound prospecting is for when your marketing isn't producing enough sales qualified leads. And we'll talk about what a sales qualified lead is versus a lead in a minute. And it is for when you need to make sales quick because, a lot of times marketing does take a while to actually start producing leads. You have to have a very clear target customer in your mind that is a good fit for you. And that will become clear in a moment. And the other thing is if you're going to outbound prospect, the LTV, the lifetime value of these customers that you're prospecting to have to make the cost of acquisition, the CAC, worth your time. So if you are selling to somebody who is, a kind of a low ticket customer, or maybe they're sort of a one-off, like let's say, for instance, you're a coach and you do not want to necessarily prospect to people who may be one-off coaching clients, or you don't necessarily want to prospect to people who might maybe buy in on a group coaching program necessarily, unless that's a very, very high value program for you. You would want to use this process to prospect maybe your classes that you would be giving internally at companies, or you would want to use this process to prospect key influencers to join one of your programs to use them, you know, to get other people to join because these people have joined too, something like that. So you've got to think about the value worth versus your time. So this isn't for people selling like beeswax candles or something like that. It's for kind of a good rule of thumb, as I say, $10,000. If this person can or would produce $10,000 in LTV, then they can be, that customer can be in this program for you. So, you know, real quick, one of the things is a lot of people think they don't need a sales pipeline. They'll say, oh, I get customers word of mouth, and you know, I go to networking events and I get referrals, and that's the best way. And, you know, I completely agree, and nothing will trump word of mouth. You know, nothing will trump a personal introduction and word of mouth. But there's a lot of different ways that you need to be prospecting and getting customers. And only one of those is word of mouth. With forecasting, when you're building a pipe, or with a pipeline, you can forecast. So what that means is you get to make relatively data-driven and informed decisions about what you might sell, what you might produce, and be able to plan. And, you know, you'll also know, like, hey, 3 months from now, it looks like I have a down month, and either that's a seasonal shift or that is something I need to focus on. And it just makes it so you're a little more in control. It also helps give you accountability, especially when you start building a team, even if it's a small team. You know, you really need to be able to know how the mechanisms of your business are affecting the customers that flow through. So one thing you might notice is you have a whole lot of you know, certain types of customers in your pipeline, and then you can attribute that into your marketing and realize, like, we need to tweak our marketing, or we need to do more of this, or whatever that might be. And you can actually see that in your pipeline and in the volumes of customers that are closing. If you're using a CRM to be able to track it, which you should be. So before we get started, there's a couple important distinctions, sort of lingo. And actually these are interesting because a lot of people use this kind of interchangeably, and then it actually can kind of hurt you. So there's prospects or contacts. Prospects and contacts are people, they're just names. Essentially, you don't know if they're interested, you don't know if they have a need, you don't know if they want it solved, you don't know anything like that. You just know they sort of fit the profile of someone that you might want to look into. Prospects and contacts then lead to what we call leads. Now, there's a difference between a lead, like somebody who opted in to you know, a white paper, or somebody who submitted for more information, and a sales qualified lead. So someone who might have submitted for more information online is called a marketing qualified lead. But to be a sales qualified lead, which is really all we care about right now, they have to meet 3 criteria. They have to, 1, have a need. I know. They have to, 2, want that need solved. And the last one, the third one, is 3, they have to be comfortable with the next steps. They have to be comfortable with moving forward. So that is what something, in order for something to meet a lead and be classified as a lead, it has to meet those 3 criteria. A lead can become an opportunity once there's a time frame attached to it. So if you know, you kind of know when they're going to buy, and there's either a budget or like a product or a package attached to them, then they become an opportunity. And at that point, you can start tracking them as an opportunity. And then, as you know, a lot of people know, just because it's an opportunity and just because you're discussing actual, you know, logistics or implementation of working together doesn't mean it's going to flow through and actually become a customer. So then you have bookings and contracts. So one of the mistakes that I've made, and I've actually seen this made a lot, is people will make joint partnerships or things like that for referrals or for work in trade in exchange for leads. And that is extremely expensive when you think about, you know, doing work and trade in exchange for leads, you know, and whatever vagueness that might mean. So, so when we're talking about, you know, sales qualified leads or opportunities and contracts, that's what we mean. So, you know, the whole point of doing outbound prospecting is to get prospects and, you know, convert those prospects through to leads, sales qualified leads, a certain percent, properly flow those leads into your opportunities pipeline. And so how do we get them fast? Well, there's a couple ways people do that. Some people say, oh, I'm going to optimize my website. I'm going to get some SEO. Some people say, oh, go to networking events, like one every night, and gather a bunch of business cards, or, and then email them, blast them on LinkedIn, and, post some stuff on social media. I hear a lot of that, just kind of wait, hope for some referrals, hope for word of mouth, hope that comes through. But you can see here, I'm saying we create a highly targeted email list of 20 of your ideal customers. And this is how we get started with outbound prospecting. And also Ariana Grande, bang, bang. Anyway, so real quick, just to show you how this looks, Acquia, which is their technology company and software platform. They did this process within their company. It was not their main source of revenue. It was not their main source. That was not the main focus for their reps. They had a lot of other channels they used to acquire sales. But within, they were able to actually create $6 million in sales qualified leads, which led to an extra $3 million in revenue in their first 18 months. And that's ramp up. So that's interesting. They generated an extra $2 million per sales rep just from doing this process. And so they went from having outbound prospecting being 0% of their new business pipeline to almost 40% of their new business pipeline. So this Acquia, obviously has reps, and they roll this process out with sales teams. I'm going to talk about how you can do something similar without having a sales team. So the way that we make this adaptable for you is to do it in bite-sized chunks. So we're going to be essentially sending half the volume that a company like a rep at Acquia might be sending. Your blasts will be smaller, they'll be less frequent, and they'll be even more highly targeted than the list that a company like Acquia or Salesforce or something like that would be using. We will utilize automations and scripts to help you save time, because you don't have a full-time business development representative to write all these emails for you. And we will only prospect to ideal customers. Each stage of the process is very, very defined carefully, and there are key activities at each stage that absolutely must be done. And there are very specific reasons why we do them. So, it's really, really important not to just say, oh, I think I'm going to go after these customers. Like, really think about that hard, because imagine, 18 months from now, you have tons of business and customers who aren't totally your ideal. And then that leads to you doing tons of work that's not totally your ideal, and then leads to things not being awesome at all. So, you definitely want to make sure that you're prospecting to the type of customer that you can just knock it out of the park for, and that is easy for you to work with and is very, very profitable for you to work with. So target customers should also be really easy to find. You don't want to say, oh, I want to work with anybody who's interested in, natural wellness. Well, okay, that's sort of a nebulous psychographic, thing. And, so an example here I have is commercial realtors in San Diego County. And you'll want to maybe niche that down even more and say, I want to work with commercial realtors in San Diego County who close this specific volume of deals per month. And they like pugs, or something like that. Or, another example is CIOs of credit unions. That is a great target, because there are a lot of credit unions, but the CIO role is a very specific role, and there's easy ways, not easy, but there are ways to find and get lists of who CIOs of credit unions are. So you're not kind of looking for a needle in a haystack as much with them. So you need, at a minimum, once you've decided, you're going to prospect to CIOs of credit unions or realtors, you need at a minimum their name, their email, the name of their company, their job title, and their phone number. Phone number is hard to get, but so if you can't get that one, maybe the number for their headquarters office or something like that is fine. But you want to make sure that this information is accurate. So this is where, this part here, research and list building, is the time consuming part. This is the part where you need to make sure names are spelled properly, emails are formatted right, company names are spelled properly, and everything like that in these lists. Luckily, we're doing small lists of, 20 or less. We're not doing hundreds. There's a lot of ways to research. I honestly just use good old LinkedIn, but there is research tools available through HubSpot. If you use a CRM such as Salesforce, you can use something like data.com. That's not my favorite. You can Google them. I mean, there are many, many, many tools to sort of find out, who's in what role at what company and whether they're still there and things like that. There's also a company here locally, if you are prospecting to larger corporations, called Discover.org, that can also help you sort of see visually an internal map of what their org chart looks like and who reports to who, and can alert you when things change, in that company and things like that. So the ways that you can build lists, there's a couple ways. You can get pretty simple with it. Go to the websites of certain trade shows and look at the list of attendees or exhibitors. If you know how to scrape or hack a little bit, you can start playing around with the URL extensions in the browser bar. And a lot of these trade show websites aren't awesome at locking down their information. So you all wonder how people start emailing you randomly. This is how. And you can get the actual email list, the emails of the people in there. That happens more commonly than not. You can also get lists of people from industry networking groups. You can build lists inside things like SalesLoft or Inside View. I actually use something called Built With to build my lists. And the thing about Built With that's great is I get huge lists and then I cancel it for a little while and I have enough to work off of for months. And so with Built With, it's interesting because you actually are able to search for companies based on their base technology. So say to you is e-commerce. So I can say, I want to look at companies that are on Magento or companies that are on, Hybris or Demandware. And then I can segment them down. I only want to see apparel, and I only want to see apparel companies on the West Coast, Oregon, Washington, and California, and it will export me a list of thousands of names of companies doing apparel on Magento in Oregon, Washington, and California. So it's great. Then I can provide that list, start, researching, filling in the names, emails, company names, and have the company names, the title of the person I need to reach, which is usually, like the director of e-commerce or something like that. And then of course there's your existing list. So there's a lot of ways to research and list build. One of the best ways to do it, honestly, is I have a very kind of defined process. I use VAs to help me build my lists. Takes a while to onboard them, but you can get your lists built and researched for pretty cost effectively. We've also experimented with using Mechanical Turk. I don't think that's something that everybody would want to do, but there's lots of creative ways to do it, and the right solution for you is probably different than the right solution for me. So from here we have lists, and we are now going to start segmenting our list into blasts that are small and targeted. And the reason we want them to be super small and targeted is because you're actually going to personally reach out to them from your email. We're not going to upload these into MailChimp or, anything like that. You're going to reach out to them from your email, but we're going to do it in a very personal way. So again, you build these lists, but these people didn't opt in to receiving marketing newsletters. So do not put them into your email marketing platform. Don't send them, anything because they didn't opt in for that. You're actually reaching out very personally to each of these people. I like to use an email tracker called Yesware. Yesware gives me no money. I don't have affiliate with them, but they probably should, because I tell almost everybody I meet that Yesware is the best thing ever. Yesware will actually allow you to create email templates, and you can see if your emails are being opened, if they're being interacted with, how often maybe one of your prospects might have read your email or clicked a link within your email, if they forwarded that email around their organization. And then you can also use this really great tool called Mail Merge, which we'll talk about in a minute. And so that's how we personalize and track the email. So I have some examples here. Next slide. So first, before we go into the examples, the copy of your email is the absolute most important thing in this entire process. It's almost more important than the people themselves you prospect to. You want to make your email copy as personalized as possible while still making this efficient for you. And it's really important to use a compelling subject line to get people to open your email. So you don't want to just say something like, "Hi," or like, your company's marketing, or, something like that. Like, it's got to be something that's going to get somebody who is, running down the street with a coffee in their hand, reading your email on their phone, and also trying to make sure they don't get hit by traffic as they cross the road, to pay attention. So that is, subject lines are key to open rates. You want to keep your email very natural and very succinct. Do not write them like 4 paragraphs, because I don't read 4-paragraph emails, and neither do your customers. So, and also keep in mind, you're going to write 6 to 8 emails total in a prospecting sequence, and space those out, a number of days in between them. So you'll have plenty of time to say what you might need to say. And so then the approach with the email and the strategy kind of varies depending on who your target is. If you're emailing into C-level, which a lot of times I am, or if you're emailing into someone who's more of a solopreneur, your strategy is different. So sometimes you might say, "I'm Mary, and I'm emailing you because blank," or you may simply reach out and say, "Hi, Bob. Sorry to bother you. Can you please direct me in the right direction for the person who's in charge of basket weaving and, adopting newts at your company?" Both strategies can work. It really just depends on who your target customer is and how much they get emailed and marketed to and things like that. And that's just something that goes on a case-by-case basis. So here's an example of a really good email. I got this email from a while back, and I was so excited because I was like, not even thinking about it, kind of read this email on my phone, hit reply, and said, "Yeah, sure." And then I realized what happened, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is so good." So this guy sends me this thing, legal ROI for Sadie. The subject line was so well timed, and I'm guessing he probably found my email through some list of Oregon Entrepreneur Network's, finalist, startup finalists for 2015 or something like that, and he's, in his mind, he knows that these customers that he's all emailing are all at a certain stage where they are needing legal, and they're probably not feeling the ROI from it. So he really understood my need and my pain when he wrote this subject line. You can also see he emailed me way early in the morning. That's when I get my best open rates, is when I send them Tuesdays at 7 a.m. Pacific time. So he starts off, "Hi Genevieve." He spelled my name right. That's great. "Love what you guys are doing over at Sadie." So he complimented me. I was like, "Ah, shucks, of course you do. We're awesome." And then he says, "Happy to announce we just raised this $10 million Series A from Menlo." So I think in my head, "Oh my God, 10 million Series A? They must be like for real, Menlo. That's no small potato, So I'm paying attention now. So then he says, "In the past year, thousands of businesses have relied on Up Counsel to supplement their existing law firm or in-house counsel while saving 60% on their legal bills." So here I am, like trying by hook or by crook to not pay my lawyers if I don't have to. And he's saving 60% on his legal bills. Like, what am I doing wrong? And so then his ask, "We're scheduling 10-minute demos. Are you interested?" "Yeah, sure. Why not?" I mean, so easy to say yes to that. It's, and I got a demo with Up Counsel, and I think I know a couple other local entrepreneurs here in Portland that did it too. So, here's an example of one that is not a good email. So as you can see, they're actually pretty similar. You would, at first glance, they kind of look the same. But here, potential partnership. That is a misleading subject line. I open that going, oh, someone wants to partner with me? And then I read this, and very clearly, this is not an email about a partnership. So, Genevieve, and that's not really a great salutation. That doesn't sound friendly. It kind of sounds like somebody who's mad at me, like my accountant sends me emails like that. He didn't do his research. Why would he call us Sadie LLC? That's weird. You don't call companies like LLC. We've been working with companies for over 25 years to help them scale safely and effectively. I don't care. Why do I care about that? He didn't link that to me. He didn't say anything about, companies at your stage typically run into X problem and we've helped companies get through this, or, tell me something interesting to me. I don't care that you've been working with people for 25 years. He put a random link in the email, which kind of weirds me out. I'm not going to click your YouTube link. That's kind of strange. And, then his ask, what is the easiest way to get on your calendar for a phone call? Like, I don't know. There's no easy way. Like, take a number. I didn't know how to answer. So, my immediate reaction is ignore and get kind of annoyed because he sent me a random weird email in the middle of the day. This company has emailed me so many times and I don't respond to them because all of their emails are kind of like this. So, we've got our list, we've written our emails, and we are ready to go. You need to streamline because you're a small company and you don't have time to sit there and send emails all day long. So what we do is we upload our list and we schedule them to go out. So you can do this really easily using something like Boomerang. But again, I highly recommend Yesware. After you have uploaded your lists, you want to make sure that you upload them to your CRM, because if we're not tracking the conversations that we're having with customers who may contact us 6 months to a year or later out, and we can't trace back what kind of communications they've received from us and what offers, then what's the point in building a pipeline? You're still guessing and you're still not able to track how many communications in general it takes before someone picks up the phone and calls you or things like that. So make sure that you have a CRM. There's some that are free. And BCC these emails to the CRM. And then make sure that you just know it's not one and done. You're not just going to upload your email and say, great, you're going to need to tweak this copy. You're going to find out that a certain call to action seems to really resonate with people. A certain subject line gets a lot of opens. A certain email template tends to bring in the most qualified, best customers, whereas another one doesn't seem to do the same. And continuously hone and refine it. So continue to tweak or twerk if you're like Miley Cyrus. So one thing that's part of this process that makes sort of a lot of people groan, but it's really not. It's really awesome and amazing what it can do is leaving voicemails. So the reason we leave voicemails is because people don't actually respond to emails. So if you send someone or respond to unknown calls, if you send somebody a voicemail, and which I like to do kind of between my third email and my fourth email, it's a really nice way for them to realize that you're human and not someone, some random person from, offshore emailing them because, you don't care. A personal introduction over voicemail can go a really long way. So now the next time they get an email from you, they get to associate your email with a friendly voice that they heard on their voicemail. And it makes them realize that you're just kind of generally a not scary person and you're genuinely interested in them because you are, otherwise you wouldn't be doing this. And it just helps them actually convert because they are more likely to reply to your next email, or they're more likely to actually pick up the phone and call you back. And a lot of the times you'll find when you sit down to do your voicemail drops, that's when your pipeline goes crazy for the week because customers start calling you back and you actually start having conversations with people, and that's kind of cool. So be ready for that when you voicemail drop. So the pitfalls of this process is, especially if you don't have a sales team and people doing this for you, is if you don't keep things scheduled and if you don't do things very incrementally, and you sort of go, oh my gosh, I want to blow up my sales pipeline. I'm going to do this, but I'm going to turn up the volume and do it like 3x. You actually will kind of just put yourself on this crazy treadmill of like, I'm going to do tons of sales. Now I'm overwhelmed with work. And now I'm going to do more sales again because I don't have any. And now I have too much work. And you kind of like fling back and forth. And that's really something you want to avoid if you can. So having a schedule and sticking to a plan, and having that plan be very specific is really important. So building pipeline is an incremental process. It's not something that you can say, okay, like, for the month of October, I'm going to build pipeline and then I'm done. Like, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. And then also a lot of people will start getting results from this. And they'll say, oh my gosh, like I'm not going to do anything else, which is kind of what I did. I was like so excited about how quickly we were converting new customers that I stopped like networking and taking meetings with people, and then sort of realized like, oh, that was not good. I should probably not blow everyone off and sit on the phone all day. So make sure that you do know targeting prospects is only one way, that you should be generating leads. You still need to do marketing, and, you still need to, go to word of mouth and network and things like that. So the benefits of this are prospecting gets customers very quickly. I think one of the things about this is I call my business partner, Jeremy, he calls it shaking trees. He says, Genevieve just goes out and shakes trees and customers fall out. I don't necessarily think that's true. I just think that like there's something about sitting down and like doing it that sort of makes, the person who'd been in your pipeline for 6 months all of a sudden calls you, and things just sort of start happening when you're doing this process. And I think it's just because you start seeing sort of your landscape a little differently, and you start seeing opportunities that maybe you didn't see before. So I think that's a side benefit of this. But the other benefit just being also that, the typical buying cycle of someone is, they learn about you, they become aware, and then they have a process of learning and understanding, and then they have a process of sort of vetting and determining whether or not you're going to be a good fit. And then they sort of have a process of negotiation and closing, and then they become your customer. And you need to kind of take people through that whole kind of cycle and provide content and support, along each way to help them make the best decision. But, when you send out, 20 prospecting emails a day, and you do this 3 days a week, and you do it for months, the law of numbers comes in. A certain number of people are going to email you back and tell you that they're not interested. A certain number of people are never going to email you ever. A large number of people will. And a certain number of people, you're going to hit them right when they're in a buying cycle. You're going to hit them when they were at the water cooler this morning talking to their boss about how much they needed your product. It happens like more than you think. And so it's all about timing, and a certain number of the people that you prospect to, it will be good timing. And that's how you can get some really great quick wins out of this process. And that's also why it's important to handpick your ideal customers, because you don't want to reach out, hit a customer. I recently emailed to Icebreaker, had the same conversation that morning. They had been talking about how much they needed this. All of a sudden, within days, we were in production on Icebreaker. And I remember thinking, like, it's a good thing I want this client. Geez, oh my God. Because it was a lot of work. It was a whirlwind. It was crazy. And if it hadn't been the type of customer that I really wanted, it would have been really bad for my team, because we were very busy. So anyway, I want to go ahead and open it for questions, but I'm not sure if Google Hangout will allow that because it's weird. So anyway, I think a lot of the people on here know how to contact me, but I want to also say I'm going to be building a website soon, and I'm going to be producing even more content about sales. I'll be talking about discovery calls, how to have those, how to build sort of good scripts for yourself to use discovery calls, overcoming objections, and how to set up your simple CRM systems, how to how to track and that kind of thing. And so probably be doing more webinars, and I'll also maybe even be creating some programs. So I'm going to go ahead and hop here into Google Hangout. Can everybody see me? And I'm trying to see how I Q&A. Let's see here. Does this work? Okay. Okay. Okay, I'm not sure if the Google Hangout, it doesn't look like it's letting people chat, and I'm not really sure about the Q&A feature at all in here. So how about this? Everybody has my email and things like that. Why don't I just go ahead, if you want to just post your questions here on the Google event page, go ahead and post them here, and I'll answer them throughout the day. And then what I can do is actually maybe I'll create like a little bit of a digest and say, here's all the questions, and then here's a couple other things I thought of, and you know, along the way. And then if you are interested, I have here a landing page that I've created, and I've essentially made a PDF. And it's very similar content to the stuff that we went over today. So if you're interested in getting that PDF email too, you can enter your email in here and get the PDF. So I think, should that work for everybody? Thanks, Kathy. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining the webinar, and thanks for hanging through the Google Hangout weirdness. And again, if you have anything else that works better than a Google Hangout to run a webinar, I would love to hear more about it. So I will look forward to getting your questions and all of your and things like that today. But again, my email, which is on the slide here, is jen.morgenstern@gmail.com. And if you have a question that you don't want to post, you know, maybe it's specific to you or something along those lines, you know, please feel free to email it to me. I'm happy to answer. You know, I do this because it's really fun for me. And even though, you know, I do run Sadie, I try to take, you know, time to be able to do some of this sales training, implementation, and coaching with people, because it's just really what I like doing. I think it's so fulfilling. So don't feel bad about emailing me. That's the moral of the story, is I want to talk to you. Anyway, so thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. And I look forward to talking to you guys soon. All right.